I have the weakest immune system. I'm not exactly sickly, but when the cold hits, it hits hard. This past week, for example, I first started feeling the onset of a cold sometime early Sunday evening. Monday, when I came into work, I was pretty useless and non-functional. Had a hard time concentrating, trouble breathing, runny nose, the whole shebang. By the time that I'm recording this on Saturday, I'm still not quite 100%. You can probably hear that my voice is still a little raspy, my nose is still slightly clogged, and I've worked through a whole forest worth of tissue paper and popped over-the-counter decongestants like Pez candy. Attending live pro wrestling shows always takes a physical toll on me. That happens a lot when I spend the whole show screaming at the top of my lungs. Overexertion of the vocal box, even just via too much talking, can cause irritation and inflammation of the vocal cords. Imagine the damage that can be done when you're screaming at a regular level for over 3 hours, peaking at a 30-minute stretch of nearly non-stop chanting and losing of one's mind. Sore throat, raspy voice, runny nose, for a whole week. Like I said, I'm still kind of recovering. This is what Robbie Eagles versus Chris Panzer did to me. If you're a fan of this channel, you are more than likely already familiar with Robbie Eagles. Coming out of the burgeoning Australian independent scene, Eagles is most famous for his current run as a junior heavyweight in New Japan, where he regularly tags with a no-name, unheralded young boy named William Ospreay. He's also a regular on the independent scene, having popped up most prominently in PWG, where he is a former BOLA participant. But most of you are likely not yet aware of one Chris Panzer, a day one stalwart of the Philippine independent wrestling scene. Chris Panzer is the first and only 3-time PWR champion. He is the centerpiece of the top heel stable in PWR, the Mr. C group headed by manager Mr. C, and flanked by PWR tag team champions Sandata and Main Max. Panzer's alignment with MSG in 2019 marked the start of a major top heel run that culminated in him winning back the PWR title in a 3-way match with then-champion Cuatro and Jeff Cobb, all the while utilizing the dastardly tactics and interference of Mr. C at ringside. As soon as this match was announced at the January PWR show, I knew that I had to be there live to see it. There simply could not be any alternative. Though I wasn't overly familiar with Eagles' work, I knew him from his Birds of Prey tags against the Bullet Club in 2019, and I looked up some of his indie work to familiarize myself with his style. Needless to say, he's a top-notch wrestler that anyone should be keeping an eye on, especially now that the junior heavyweight division in New Japan has just lost one of its major stars. The announcement that these two men would be wrestling for the PWR Championship in Manila set me on a path straight towards missing a full work day and disgusting, snot-ridden bed rest. The best thing about Chris Panzer being such a slimy heel is that facing him amplifies the love that any import naturally carries with them when facing him. The Philippine crowd was always going to cheer Robbie Eagles, whether or not they were familiar with his New Japan work. Robbie Eagles has a reputation. Robbie Eagles has a history. Robbie Eagles is a name. That was always going to be over. But when pitted against Slimeball Panzer and his sneaky manager Mr. C at ringside, Eagles' value to the audience rises tenfold. Not only is he a major name coming to our patch of the wrestling world to ply his craft, now he's also an incoming hero looking to humble and knock off the plague that is Chris Panzer and MSG. Eagles starts things off hot by going for an early superkick, getting a tense near fall right at the bell. This extends into a fantastic babyface shine as Eagles spends some time just flexing on Panzer, chopping him, kicking him, working his legs over. An effective babyface shine like this is absolutely paramount to keeping a crowd white hot. It feeds the crowd's energy by giving them exactly what they want, the heel getting battered. It cuts away the tedious nature of feeling out processes in other long title matches and gets straight to the heart of the action. It also makes the inevitable transition into the heel heat segment all the more frustrating, as all the crowd wants to see is Robbie Eagles get back to doing what he does best, caving in Chris Panzer's chest and threatening to rip his leg off. Eagles' legwork in this match is just immaculate. He combines a mix of submission holds, striking, and flashy aerial tricks to target Panzer's leg with a precision that kind of boggles the mind. And while I've gone out of my way to praise Eagles' performance here, it's necessary to point out Panzer's contributions as well. Specifically in that Panzer never tries to be too cool for his own role here. It is tempting when you have the chance to go up against an international superstar like Robbie Eagles to go into a New Japan-esque epic trade-off of counters, finishers, and near falls, but Panzer doesn't resort to that, instead doing what is needed of him. Being a dirty, cheating trash bag trying to screw over Robbie Eagles. Belt shots and Mr. C interference aplenty make Panzer the most despicable man in Manila, which only makes Eagles' eventual comebacks all the sweeter. I was seated front row during this match, surrounded by Robbie Eagles' family who lives in the Philippines. Anecdotally, I can attest for the emotion that both Panzer and Eagles wielded that night, to take the crowd on a journey of highs and lows. In fact, the emotion overcame me so strongly that around the halfway mark of the match, I began to feel physically overwhelmed. Around here, I felt myself queasy from overexerting my diaphragm and throat. By the time we get to Eagles' awesome kickout at 1, I was basically scorching my vocal cords raw. Living in a country that only has a wrestling scene in its infancy, it was always going to be a big deal that Robbie Eagles came. He could have worked a 20-minute match built around a headlock and PWR would still have done great business and a portion of the fan base would still have enjoyed it. But with that being said, the amount of effort and work that went into crafting such a thrilling title match for the crowd in attendance that night and the rush of emotions means that even after reviewing the footage, my opinion on this match will be colored by what a lot of people call live bias. By default, almost all wrestling viewing is better when done so live with a crowd. You're taken up by the atmosphere, you chant along with the fans, and your mind has no time to absorb some of the tinier nuances and details that workers put into matches that typically translate better onto film. When a match with as many peaks and highs as this one comes along, those will stand out at the front of the mind. It's why I don't rate matches using the 5-star scale, instead using a less precise scale going from skippable to fun to great to epic. As you can probably tell, a majority of that scale is innately positive in its wording because of how much a live experience enhances a pro wrestling show. Needless to say, Eagles vs. Panzer Live came out as an epic after seeing it that night. The trouble comes when revisiting that match on footage, conflating what my eyes see in this more focused form with what I saw and felt on the day of the event. It's here where I find myself challenged as a critic, trying to balance the lingering emotion and physical effects of the live experience with the far more detailed footage and less muted but more accurate experience of watching online. In my attempt to balance these two experiences to remain honest to both my own critical faculties as well as my live experience, I've currently landed on a rating of 4.25 stars. It's a great indie-style title match that keeps its energy up and plays off a pretty cut-and-dry heel-face dynamic. It's available to watch for free right now on PWR's YouTube channel, so hit that link in the description. It's probably not going to be a top 10 match of the year for anyone who wasn't in the crowd, but let's get some people talking about it. I think this is some of the best work that's ever happened in the Philippines, so I think it'll be worth your time. Thank you everyone for tuning into this video. I apologize if my voice sounds a little bit off. Like I said, I am still recovering from my cold. Don't worry, I am on the upmend though. You guys are absolutely awesome. If you want to support my channel in any way, consider buying me a coffee. You can leave a one-time donation on my coffee page. That's ko-fi.com/Joseph Montecillo. You guys are absolutely wonderful and amazing. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Comment down below. You guys are great. Thank you and have a good one.